Hey, this is Zach Log the Great, and I am here tonight with Nate.
Hey, everybody.
And with Lewis.
Woohoo!
And we are getting together tonight to discuss the George Gordon Lord Byron poem written after swimming from Sestos to Abydos. Before we get to that, as usual, I would like to mention everybody, if you like my work, if you like this video, if you like the other videos I've done, if you want to support me, please stop by subscribestar.com/Zachlog-the-great. And you can sign up for to support like $3 a month. It's not a ton, but it does help me does help me keep doing this. And
every little bit helps.
All right, and having said that, I believe Nate volunteered to read the poem for us tonight, so I am going to put it up for everyone to see. And there we go. Go for it.
I raised my massive piece of paper. Just look how big that thing is compared to. If, in the month of dark December, Leander, who is nightly wont, and what maid will not the tale remember, to cross thy stream broad Hellespont, if when the wintry tempest roared, he sped to Hero, nothing loath, and thus of old thy current poured, fair Venus, how I pity both. For me, degenerate modern wretch, though in the genial month of May, my dripping limbs I faintly stretch, and think I've done a feat today. But since he crossed the rapid tide, according to the doubtful story, to woo and Lord knows what beside, and swam for love, as I for glory, 'twere hard to say who fared the best. Sad mortals, thus the gods still plague you. He lost his labor, I my jest, for he was drowned, and I've the ague.
And that is written after swimming from Sestos to Abydos. Thank you, Nate. And before we really get rolling, this is one of the earlier poems I recorded for this channel, and I performed it from memory, and I'd had it memorized for a while, and I had not bothered checking it, checking a printed version, and I feel kind of silly, and there is a note on that video. I feel kind of silly because I screwed it up just a tiny little bit at the end. I said the last line, "For Hero drowned and I've the ague." That is not the correct reading.
So, that changes the story a little bit. Hey, baby, I'm out of gas tonight. Why don't you come to my place? I'm not as good a swimmer. My parents ain't home.
Anyway, so for those not very familiar with Greek or ancient Greek or with English literature, this poem is referring to an older story, which has been an ancient Greek story, which has been rewritten and represented periodically and several times referred to in Shakespeare. Christopher Marlowe has a version, and it's these two lovers on opposite sides of the Hellespont, which is about a mile or 3/4 of a mile. So it's not really far, but it is.
Yes, sir.
Calm down, buddy. You're overshadowing Sean.
It's not absurdly far, but it is very cold, and the currents are can be very dangerous. And so in this story, he would end up swimming across the Hellespont like on a regular basis to come see her, and then swimming back, and she would hold. I think she held a lamp out to guide him. And then one night her lamp got blown out, or she forgot to light it or something, and he lost his way and drowned. And then of course, since this is a Greek story, she despaired and committed suicide, and and a happy ending for everyone. And so this is based on or referring to that older story. So having put that in, Nate, would you like to get us started tonight?
Yeah, sure. It's funny because in paying homage to this story, Lord Byron was actually the first person known to make this swim, officially. And in doing, he actually has started a big thing where this is like now a legendary thing. It's like, one of the things you got to do if you're an open water swimmer is, you go and you swim the Hellespont, also known as the Dardanelles in modern times. But, because you're swimming, it's an intercontinental swim, actually, because that narrow strait is sort of the dividing line at that point between Europe and Asia.
Huh.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, I swim from one continent to another. It's like, oh man, very interesting. Swim from Asia to Australia next time. But I like the general humor of this thing. So he's like, as I get older and crotchetier, I feel like anytime I exert myself, I kind of feel like this, where I'm like, oh man, I've just done myself in on this task. It's, all you whippersnappers out there doing stuff, I just, kind of achy and sore now. And that's what this whole poem, it's like, yeah, whatever. It's like, yeah, man, he swam over here for a chick. I did it just to do it, and I've killed myself.
Yeah, it's
the ague, by the way, being a state of intense fever and just blah. Some people would say it's akin to malaria.
Ooh.
Sort of a catch-all term.
And like you said, he is one of the first non-legendary figures to do this, and it's kind of funny because we've done this is the second Byron poem we've talked about here. The other one is, what was it? Lines inscribed upon a cup formed from a skull. And
long ass title. He ought to workshop that one a little bit.
And that one also is semi-autobiographical because Lord Byron had several cups made out of human skulls.
Wait, seriously?
Yes. Yeah.
Dude was wild, man.
He's I said this last time, and it bears repeating. I'm a Christian. I think people should be Christian. I think we should strive to live live lives. We ought to be striving to become saints. At the same time, if you're not a Christian, you may as well be Byron. Like, why be anything in between? Because the guy,
if you're going to go to hell, you might as well blow the doors off the place.
Yeah, and it's
go hard or go home.
He was just quite a I don't know, legendary figure. I'm abusing that word because I just used it to mean fictional, but he had a hard to believe life, and he's a fascinating character. And so, he decides to he says, oh, there's this old story. Has anyone ever done this? No? Okay, let's find out if we can do it, or if someone's going to die doing it. And then he tries, and he does it. And it's like, why not?
YOLO.
So Nate, I'm guessing you looked up about people swimming that you read up about people swimming the Dardanelles today.
Yeah, I had a little gander at it. Apparently, there's a company that's what they do is like Like, I think if you're like a Grecian or a Turk, you can make the swim just whatever. But any other entries are like, heavily regulated, and you have to like purchase a ticket to go do it at the yearly swim.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is one of the most busiest shipping lanes in the world, and they only shut it down for one day. And you got to imagine this costs billions of dollars in shipping traffic stoppage. So and you can't just have the water choked with a bunch of the corpses of a bunch of morons who couldn't actually make it. So they're like, hey, we're gonna sort of vet who comes here from anywhere else.
So it's a little bit
well, that's kind of cool.
So it's a little bit like Mount Everest, if Mount Everest were in the middle of a major trade route, and like people still wanted to do this mythic feat, but
this honestly seems like something you could do with like a moderate amount of training, because it's 4.5 kilometers, which is that's a couple of miles and change, but it's not like swimming the channel.
Well, I would say the other thing is, like, if you're doing it when a lot of people are aware and there are like effectively lifeguards, it's not that big a deal. I don't think anyone was prepared to save Byron. I think his was most likely actually do or die. Which, like I said,
I'm gonna go ahead and say, like I said, I'm not knocking anybody who does it today, much less old GLB, my GGLB, Google. I said I'm not knocking his thing at all. That was ballsy. I'm just saying that as these long swims go, it's legendary, but not the most difficult one you can pick. Although the currents probably don't help, because it's really narrow and sort of tidal body of water. So the currents are going to be a little nuts.
Lewis, you haven't had much. Did you have anything to put in?
I gotta admit, when I was first reading it, I was kind of struck by he's going for the old adage, the old tale, the old story of Hero and Leander, and when he started going to the end of the story where he said that at the end of the tale, I've got the ague. And hang on, let me see real quick. What was the exact quote here?
For hard to say who fared the best. Sad mortals, thus the gods still plague you. He lost his labor, I my jest, for he was drowned, and I've the ague.
I love that he said that it was I lost my jest, so I lost my joke, because this just gets me thinking that he did this, on a whim. It's like he didn't really seriously think about it. It's just like, man, why not? Let's do it. He regrets it.
That's completely in character, is the thing. That is, like, you don't have to know
when I read the line, I lost my, you lost your labor and I my jest. I was like, did he do this on a bet? Like, nah, man. He's like, nah, dude, I can totally drink. He's like, hey, drinking contest. If not, I'll swim the Hellespont, whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah. And somebody actually drank him under the table, and he's like waking up the next morning like, crap, I gotta go to Greece.
Or this could be, George Gordon, Lord Byron, turning to someone and saying, "Hold my beer."
Hold my cup made from a skull.
Hold my beer in this goblet made from a skull.
I kind of don't want to, George. That's weird, man. It's looking at me.
Anyone who is hanging out with him voluntarily is used to it by this point. But
the British equivalent of hold my beer and watch me do this.
But yeah.
Well, as the poet said, there's always someone.
But it's I really like this one. I've liked this one for a long time. I memorized this long before I started doing poetry on my channel, because it's kind of funny because it like knits together this like this old tale, this ancient Greek myth, Hero and Leander, and this weird sardonic sense of humor, and just absolute lunatic badassery. It's like all of these things, you know, put in this one thing, and it's like, how do you not admire that? Even if you're kind of standing there slack-jawed, horrified, you're also admiring it, and it's yeah.
I've met one or two people like that in my life. It's kind of like, that is the thing you just did. Good job. I don't know, the story of Hero and Leander, you know, it's like, I got to admit, the dude was committed. I'm going to swim this, you know, and the thing is, you got to swim back, too. So I'm going to swim like 4 or 5 miles a night on the chance of getting some with this cute priestess of Aphrodite over here, you know, living on top of her tower. And how did he come to meet her in the first place? And the story, the summary I read didn't really say. It just said that he would swim over there to woo her. It didn't say, like, you know, he just wound up on that side of the, you know, on that side of the channel one day and was like, oh, hey, she's cute. Who's that? Oh, well, that's Hero. Oh, huh. What does she do? She lives on top of the tower as a priestess of Aphrodite. Neat. I'm going to swim back over here. I'm coming back tonight. They chat, and then he convinces her eventually that, you know, Aphrodite, as a goddess of both, you know, beauty, fertility, and, you know, skirmishes, is not going to like some cowardly virgin's ministration. She wants, you know, an adventurous girl. So Hero says, well, let's have some adventure, homeboy. So they're like, you know, the summer loving story, right? You know, it happens so fast. Like I said, I mean, it's great. And then, like, comes wintertime, and, you know, why is he swimming in wintertime? It said it was a summer tryst, but it doesn't say that it continued into fall. So, I mean, do they break it off, and then one day, like, he gets, I don't know, a pigeon that says, hey, come over, my goddess isn't home, and he's like, swimming time? Sploosh. There's so much about this story that just makes me smile. Like, you know, these kids, these were teenagers. These were definitely teenagers.
What I want to see now is I want to see a video where you are summarizing the story and someone's drawing a little, like, cheap, slightly over stick figure animation to go along with it. I think that would be a good video.
Possibly.
I'd pay to see that.
I enjoy simplifying an explanation to, like, you know, just the most amusing level.
Well, isn't there also, I think there's a YouTube channel that's like Drunk History, where they, like, you know,
there's Drunk History, and then there's also like overly sarcastic history that kind of does what I was talking about. Oversimplified history. There's the one. Yeah, they kind of do what I was just doing, but they do it to history.
Hey, we could do that to Greek myths and legends.
Overly simplified mythology.
If you can find someone,
we're going to cover half of it right now.
If you can find someone to animate it, I'd go for it, but I don't have those skills.
Yeah. Here we go. We're going to do half the stories right now in very, very simple fashion. Zeus was horny and had poor impulse control. The end.
That's half of the myths and legends. He was horny and had poor impulse control.
Poor Hero.
Oh.
Well, anyway, back to Byron. Oh man, I just
now I'm picturing.
It reminds me of the son. You know what this reminds me of is the sons of Katie Elder. They're talking to the youngest son. He's like, "Ain't I a man?" They're like, "What have you done to make you a man?" He says, "Well, I clumb Pike's Peak." I'm like, "You did what to Pike's Peak?" "I clumb it." "You mean you climbed it?" "Yeah." "Why'd you want to do that?" "Well, it was there." And I get the feeling that's Byron looking at the Hellespont like, I'm going to swim it. But G, Y, double G, double Y.
Something
It's
tells
there.
me.
It's right?
Yeah.
Water's wet, you can swim in it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
significantly harder to swim in land.
Something tells me that Lord Byron, halfway across, he thought it was a bad idea.
Yeah, you know what? These waters are much less genial to my palate than the wine I'm accustomed to. Homer's wine dark seas are not flavored thusly.
Mm-hmm.
Splash, 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 splash. Honestly, I'm just sitting here throwing all these lines just to keep my mind off my thumb. Got a wine dark thumb.
What happened to your thumb?
I smacked it with a hammer.
Why?
It
Well,
actually was.
Sometimes when a man loves a nail, he doesn't want to hit it as much as he thought he did. And so he pulls the blow and it skids off to the side. He realized he didn't like that nail as much as he thought. The nail he really wanted to keep intact was on his thumb.
The love of a man and his nail.
No!
Yes!
Another fan. All right.
Oh.
Well, anyway, but yeah, so you see me randomly grimace. It's not because somebody said something I disagree with. It's that I caught a especially good throb.
Ugh.
Eyebrows.
Hmm.
But honestly, Sean, what do you think about the poem? Because we haven't heard much from you at all. It's mostly me and Lewis going,
I don't know. Like I said, it's I've had this one memorized for a while, and I think it's funny, and it's that when you know that he actually did this, that this isn't just like part of the reason I started this I started doing the poetry series well before I started the discussions was because I wanted to show that poetry is I think the way poetry is taught today is atrocious, and I want to show that poetry isn't just this ooey gooey touchy feely hormonal teenage girl vomit of feelings onto a page, and this that he actually did this and then was able to write about it in this succinct and punchy kind of form is it's excellence at so many levels, and it's just this is one that's been stuck in my head for a while now. I really like this poem. I don't know.
It's just interesting, to think about, a poet doing this, and a poet of note, not like some guy who wrote a poem once, but like a guy who's legit, but then he's still got all this sort of, physical ability, like kind of like a sort of Renaissance man, like Alexander Dumas. He was a insanely talented writer, all that, but he was also a very physical man. Like he was big and strong and brawly, and his dad was apparently like a freaking monster. Like they say, the character Porthos is based on Dumas Père, the father of Alexander Dumas.
Ooh.
Yeah, said he was a big lusty dude, and like he went through and had all these adventures, in the army and doing all this crazy stuff. And Alexander himself, he was he was on the barricades during the revolution. Like he fought, and he was a lot the same. And you run into a lot of these sort of like these sort of very adventurous writers and vigorous men, still sat down and, could put down a good verse, because why not? It's a way to speak of life lived.
Yeah, like the modern, split between today, someone is an intellectual or someone is physical and strong and masculine and engaged in the world, but not both. Like that's not the way. That's not the way things have been historically. That's not That's not what the kind. Neither of those are the kind of person people in the past would look up to. And if you even look back to our founding fathers, most of them, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, most of them were they obviously were very intelligent, and they were out there physically engaged in the world. A lot of them were George Washington was a soldier, and fought for his life, and everyone, and the life of all his men. And you don't have to do one or the other. Like you can have both as a part of your life, and you can strive to have some measure of both physical and intellectual strength.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thought, because usually we have heroes from the past. We usually consider Alexander the Great, Hercules, even big, strong, beefy, hairy, manly men. And let's be honest, they were not the most well-spoken. So, well, not always. Alexander the Great could inspire his men, but he didn't really leave behind a whole lot of literary work. And
and he also didn't leave behind anything in the form of an organization that would live after him. Like he conquered all this territory, and he died, and then immediately after him, everything got split up between his second level generals, because while he was apparently pretty good at leading an army, he didn't have any kind of skill in terms of governance and building an enduring structure, and so the whole thing just shattered immediately after him.
True, his administrative skills were kind of lacking, but we all remember him for his feats of conquest and strength. And
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna wrap up by saying that that's kind of even carried through in modern society, because look at movies today. We've got these big, strong, manly men. I mean, look at the Avengers series that just recently wrapped up. You've got guys like the Hulk, Captain America. You've got these big, beefy men, and even the intellectuals like the hero Iron Man. Very smart, but also can pack a wallop. So all of them have an aspect of physical strength, martial prowess, and just power to them.
Well, and
because classically that is the image of a man. He's wise. So he's wise and he's strong. You don't have to, to be just strong. You're a brute and a fool. You're going to basically, your strength is going to lead you astray. You're going to be despoiled by someone wiser than you.
Hulk smash.
Or, you spend too much time being intellectual and you're going to be useless. It's like all the thought in the world, all the sort of philosophy and whatever, don't plant crops.
Mm-hmm.
And if the corn, if you ain't growing your own corn or olive trees or whatever you have where you're at, you're going to starve to death when winter comes. So, and all the high thought in the world isn't going to help you there. Like I said, can't remember the quote, but it says, it basically says that, a man who is all brawn is too base. A man who is all thought is, it's too high. You kind of got to meet in the middle. You need to balance the two out. And that's dead on. I mean, I said you can't. Don't think so much that you're physically useless, but don't be so physical that you atrophy your brain.
Well, and you mentioned Alexander the Great as an example of someone who had these great martial achievements, these great physical conquests, but doesn't appear to have made much of a mark intellectually. And then you fast forward a couple of hundred years, and you have Julius Caesar, for instance, who was a stunning general, and a great military leader, and he was also a brilliant writer, and his politician, and his his journals from during the Gallic campaign are still considered are still considered canonical Latin texts today. Like, you have to consider yourself a student of Latin, you have to have read these.
I actually have a copy of that on my shelf. Is Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars.
I have not. I only have secondhand knowledge of that. I have read Marcus Aurelius, and he's. I highly recommend Marcus Aurelius. By the way, his meditations are definitely worth reading through at least once. So like we were saying, in earlier times there was the people they held up had the whole deal, had the had the intellectual strength, had the physical strength as well, and so it's and
we're left with
George
talking.
And George Gordon had some degree of both of them, plus a fair measure of insanity. Entertaining insanity, fun to watch, probably not so fun to be personally involved with. One of the I forget who it was. There was some woman, after meeting him, wrote one of my favorite descriptions in the world. Wrote of him: mad, bad, and dangerous to know.
Yikes.
Gotta admit, there are worse things to have on your headstone.
Barely existed would be significantly worse to have.
They're trying to figure out what to put on his headstone. What'd you come up with? It's like it's a 6-period ellipse. That's all we had. It's like a double meh.
Well, and it's to bring this to take this in a direction I don't know how much Byron would want us to be would like this as part of his discussion, but take this to Christianity a little bit. I remember in C.S. Lewis, and I can rarely remember where it is I saw this, but I found things in something of his I've read. But he said, these blazingly stunning sinners, these what would you call avatars of some vice or other. I think this was in one of the Screwtape, in either Screwtape letters or Screwtape proposes a toast. But he said, these like, I'm losing words. But these fantastic sinners, these amazing characters of vice. If you know history, and if you know the stories of some of the Christian saints, these same people can suddenly and without warning, so to speak, turn and become some of God's highest saints. And because there is this passion, there is this energy, there is this drive, and all it takes is turning it. Whereas, like we said, like you were just saying, this person who his epitaph is just an ellipses. Well, maybe he probably didn't do much harm, but what good did he do either? And so, and that's kind of the other reason I say, like, you should be a Christian. You should, follow the teachings of Christianity and the moral rules. But if you're not going to do that, you may as well be Byron, because you have that energy, you have that passion, and even if you're using it for bad, if God manages to get his hand on you, that same energy can drive right into the church too, and accomplish amazing things.
Yeah, kind of like Saint Augustus. He was an impressive sinner. Augustine, thank you. He was, as if memory serves, that he was an impressive sinner by his own admission, and then he turned himself around and became a saint. And one of your, I forget what it was that reminded me, but something that you said reminded me of just sitting around doing nothing. It's kind of akin to evil thrives when good men do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I've covered most of what I had.
I always adopt a slouch when we're talking about Byron.
What's that?
I always adopt sort of a slouch when we're talking about Byron. Just kind of like, yes, let's be decadent. Dissolute here. We'll just no need for posture. I'm just going to lounge across my chair.
Yes, indubitably.
Nothing really matters.
I think I've covered most of what I wanted to say about this one. Any other main points for either of you? Nate?
No.
Lewis?
No, man.
You got anything else you wanted to hit on this one?
I would just like to compliment the both of you gentlemen on reaching such levels of deep philosophy on a poem that equivocates to essentially a YOLO for a Renaissance noble.
Okay, well, then thank you guys for joining us tonight. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Lewis. And I guess we'll be closing out. And God be with you.
And also with you.
Amen, brother.